Welcome, everybody. Hi, I'm David Cowan, president of the Museum of American Finance, and let's find out tonight if we can learn to love the bot. Now, I want to acknowledge first and foremost our sponsor for tonight, which is Betterment, a highly engaged friend of the museum. Kim Rosenblum is on the museum's Communications Executives Advisory Panel. Our relationship goes back some 10 years when John Stein, one of the founders of Betterment, was a panelist in one of our programs. Now, tonight's program is emblematic of the museum's mission, which is to preserve, exhibit, and teach about the nation's finances and financial history. And if you don't know much about us, there's a strong group from the board here tonight led by Vice Chair Andrea DiCiolnucci, trustees Martha Goss, Bob Pisani, Dave Schuler, Dan Baru, and Scott Rettel. Now, we like featuring fintech, and we have done previous programs on Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, SPACs. But today, you cannot get into a conversation without hearing about AI. There was even news yesterday from Apple. So a short definition, and I'm going to read this one. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing the way we live, work, and interact with technology. It's the intelligence demonstrated by machines, enabling them to learn from data, adapt to new situations, and perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. From personalized recommendations on streaming platforms to autonomous vehicles and cutting-edge medical diagnostics, AI is reshaping all industries and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. I didn't write that. AI did, and did it in a half a second. It's a brave new world we're in, and hopefully tonight we will be able to help all of us navigate it. Now, it's going to be my pleasure to introduce Sarah Kirschbaum-Levy, the CEO of Betterment. In the past 3 years, Sarah has expanded Betterment's business beyond direct to retail to now include 401k offering plans to small and medium-sized businesses, as well as custodial solutions for RIAs. She brings 25 years of experience in brand building, customer loyalty, corporate strategy, and operational excellence. Now, given the highly competitive nature of today's landscape in financial services, Sarah really understands that a company needs to reflect the values of their customers. And the best way they do that, it's so succinct and wonderful. Betterment's mission is to simply making people's lives better. That's terrific. And how do they do it? Accomplishing it through scalable technology and outstanding service. So please have a look at our website where you can learn more about Sarah's background as well as all of our panelists this evening. There'll be a brief Q&A afterwards at the end of the formal panel discussion, including the panelists' reaction to your responses to our pre-program poll. And if time permits, we'll take a few questions from the audience. And remember, right after that, most importantly, we have a cocktail reception where you can interact with all of us. My pleasure now to introduce Sarah Kirschbaum-Levy.
All right, thank you, David. So if streamers are really using AI to make recommendations, I don't know why I only get recommended World War II material over and over and over again. So I think there's room for improvement. So thank you, David, for that lovely introduction and for kicking us off tonight. Welcome to all of you to Betterment. We're thrilled to have you here. Please, enjoy the program and then stick around for some cocktails afterwards. So let's talk about AI. It's more than a trending topic. Really, it's become part of every business. And we strongly believe in both the use cases today, which I think hopefully you'll hear from John, our CTO, who's on the panel here. But we also believe in the potential for the future that we've barely scratched the surface. Betterment was really founded on breakthrough technology. We pioneered automated investing, and today we are the largest independent digital investment advisor. When you think about our business, over the past 15 years, we've grown to serve almost 900,000 customers and to manage over 45 billion in assets under management. We do that, and I think David summed up nicely our business, really 3 customer segments and 3 businesses built off of a single technology platform. The first is our retail business, which is a wealth management platform that really expands access to people who previously didn't, or who otherwise would not have access to great financial advice because by virtue of the size of the assets that they hold. So we have both savings and investing for those earlier investors in their journey. We then have built we believe in retirement strongly, and we believe that there's sort of a societal impairment, a societal imperative around retirement, which is to say that, pensions no longer exist. We don't know the fate of Social Security in terms of its ability to really provide for this next generation. And so private saving is so incredibly important. And small and medium-sized businesses are the businesses that have been left behind in that retirement story. And so I think there's a huge problem to be solved with technology, and we are solving that problem. And then thirdly, we serve the RIA community with great scalable technology that allows them to build and grow their businesses, and again, to expand access to their advice. So recently, you may have read, we acquired the Marcus Invest business from Goldman because building these technology platforms is hard. They're hard to build. There's a certain scale required, and we're really excited to welcome Marcus Invest customers at the end of the month to the Betterment platform. So our business has been experiencing tremendous growth, and that is both in the marketplace and as well as our company. And tonight is really sort of a special night for us. It's the last in-person event we're going to host in this fabulous space because we're moving to Hudson Yards in the early fall. So that hopefully you guys will join us there for our next event. So David asked me to spend just a minute introducing the fantastic moderator, downtown Josh Brown. But before diving in, let me just give you a few thank yous, and then we'll turn to the panel. So let me extend my appreciation to those who made tonight possible. A huge thank you to the Museum of American Finance and to Mindy Ross, particularly, there you are, who is the head of external relations, who drove the agenda, and who has been an incredible partner to Betterment. So thank you, Mindy. And Kim has really enjoyed her place on the museum's advisory board, and we really appreciate your efforts to promote the industry. It's really important. And then, of course, a big thanks to my colleagues in marketing and communications and workplace experience who put this all together and orchestrated the evening. So, downtown Josh Brown. He hosts tonight's panel, and Josh is a great friend and a powerhouse in the advisor market. Full disclosure, and my compliance team makes me say this, he's also a valued client. Josh is the CEO and co-founder of Ritholtz Wealth Management. Ritholtz oversees over $4 billion in assets and was ranked number 8 among USA Today's top 500 U.S. investment advisory firms in 2024. But that's not where Josh ends. Josh is a financial advisor. He is a CNBC regular, an author, a content creator, a TV personality.
A lover.
A lover and a fighter, a podcaster, an investor, and a father. So Josh wears many hats. And tonight I will hand it over to Josh to introduce the panelists and to get the conversation started.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Sarah. How about a round of applause for Sarah and the museum? And thank you so much, Betterment, for hosting us. I have been so excited about this from the moment Mindy asked me to come and moderate this panel. And then when I heard about who was on the panel, I got even more excited because we truly have people who are thoughtful and very focused on technology and understand the way in which some of our hopes and dreams about tech actually manifest themselves when the rubber meets the road and you have to actually make investments and hire people and scale. And sometimes things turn out differently than our initial expectations. So I'm really, really thrilled to introduce you to my 3 panelists tonight. Let's start from John all the way on the end. John Mileham is the Chief Technology Officer at Betterment. He has informed me recently that he oversees a team of something like 130 technology-related employees here at Betterment. And he's been here, how long have you been here?
I've been at Betterment for over a decade.
Okay, so it's almost since the beginning.
Yeah. Well, certainly since we started really getting after the business of scaling, yeah.
Okay, very cool. A round of applause for John, please. To John's right, Hema Balasubramanian, who is the Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at Fidelity's Center for Applied Technology. Round of applause for Hema. Hema, how did you get to Fidelity, and how long have you been with the Center for Applied Technology?
I have been here for a little over 5 years at this point, and the Fidelity Center for Applied Technology is Fidelity's innovation wing, and I'm really excited for this discussion.
I've heard that you are highly innovative.
We shall see.
Okay, we're gonna find out tonight. Okay, and to my left, an old friend of mine, Jeremy Olshan, is the personal finance bureau chief at the Wall Street Journal. You've been covering personal finance, Wall Street, money management, investing for 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah, at least.
At least. Okay. All right. Welcome. We're so happy to have you. Do you want to say anything about your time at the Journal? With the mic closer. Perfect.
The Journal's an amazing place to be working, and we're wrestling and talking to much more qualified folks to speak on this subject every day, and I get to ask the dumb questions that hopefully explain all this stuff to everyone else.
Thank you, Jeremy. We're gonna try to ask smart questions tonight. That's my job. Before we get into the questions, I want to set the scene a little bit. A lot of you guys filled out a survey about your use and ideas around AI, and I want to just give you a sense of what you told us in preparation for today. The first question: how many times per week do you knowingly use AI-driven tools or services? 51% of you said 1 to 5 times per week. 29% of you have said you've never used them. The knowingly part is going to be important. About 20% say you use them fairly regularly per week. Is that surprising to you guys at all, or is that about what you would have guessed if I had asked you what an average audience would say about AI use?
Honestly, I'm really surprised.
You're really surprised?
Yes,
Why?
because it's even before the generative AI hype, AI has been all around us. It's Siri, it's Alexa, it's Google Maps, it's Netflix recommendations, YouTube recommendations. What's interesting, I think, is they all came branded as products, which ultimately is what you want AI to do, is get to business value. And right now, of course, since it's an emerging trend, we're hearing more about the technology. So it's just how we think about these things.
Yeah. I think when you ask people, do they use AI, they're answering based on whether or not they've opened ChatGPT that day. Right. That's probably right now where most of us are at. Okay. The second question that we asked is, which 2 emotions best describe your feelings about the application of AI into the finance industry? 25% said that you were curious, 21% intrigued, 18% optimistic versus 14% skepticism. 1% said hungry. That was me. John, do you think that, would you have guessed that optimism would outweigh skepticism amongst a finance and tech focused audience? I think I would have.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. I think like a cautious optimism is sort of like where the vibe is from my perspective. I think it's really going to be about what ways it's going to have the impacts, and how to make sure that it's all the good stuff. Okay.
Let me skip to this one. When it comes to retirement planning, would you feel comfortable trusting an AI tool, a human financial advisor, a digital investing app, or a combination of all of these options? So 31% of you said an AI tool, 25% said a digital investing app. Sorry, Sarah. Those were the second and third choices. Those who have no experience with AI tools preferred a human financial advisor. So I think where we're going to get to with this panel by the end is that the future is going to involve some combination of a great digital experience like what Betterment offers, with a lot of AI embedded, whether the client is even aware of it or not. And then humans, whether they're engineers or human financial advisors, somebody being on top of this and making sure that it's all working right. Jeremy, is that about where you're at this point?
Absolutely. I think to Hema's point, I mean, we are all, and have been for quite some time, we are cyborgs. Most of us can't do anything, and you can barely make it through our day without the help of technology, without looking at our phone 60 million times. And I think the reason that generative AI has changed people's perceptions, it feels different than all the other algorithms you mentioned, and it's I think, exciting and scary, and people.
What about it do you think feels different?
Well, to the retirement question, to what extent are you willing to cede decision making to it is one. Like, I know people who, I have a car with self-driving features. I don't really like it. I know people who would never in a million years trust, the self-driving to get them from point A to point B. So the idea that you would trust a self-driving advisor to get you to retirement is probably equally, or maybe it should be even more insane on some levels. Although driving through Queens or Brooklyn, you might be better off with.
Right. Hema, one of the questions was, how likely do you think it is that AI will be significant in your own job or a similar job within the next 10 years? And 90% said AI will be significant in my job in the next 10 years. 56% said very likely, 31% said likely. I don't think there's anyone in this room that would show up to an event like this if they didn't think big change was coming. How do you answer questions internally at Fidelity when people who work in what they call these days TradFi, traditional finance, want to hear from your group about the change that could be coming?
Yeah, I think there's two elements. There's a certain excitement. There's hope that things can be done better, faster, higher quality outcomes with AI augmenting the humans. And then there's a little bit of concern, of course, as well with the risks and having the right guardrails and so on and so forth. What we have tried to do is really go with a scan, try, scale approach is what we call it. So we look and experiment through a lot of ideas, but then only try out a few promising ones and then very selectively scale. And all throughout the process, we keep the end consumers and the end users very involved in designing it. So as the process goes through, they end up having more buy-in and having more trust in it. So this is not entirely about technology. It's about human emotions like trust as much as it is about other things. So I think, again, also people are starting to use this on a day-to-day basis, whether it's for a recipe or planning a party. And so it doesn't all have to come from the workplace, right? There's other avenues that are contributing to the revolution. And I think altogether, we are going to move forward. But the rate and pace, remains to be seen.
The last question that we'll get to from the survey, we asked you guys, do you believe AI will replace jobs such as your own or similar within the next 10 years? So now we're changing the wording. Now we're going from, will this affect your job or be significant in your job, to will it replace your job? 44% of you said no, AI won't replace me in my work. 37% said yes. 19% said unsure, which is also a version of yes. So more than half are contemplating the possibility that the AI is coming for their job. John, is that surprising to you?
Well, I think maybe the framing of the question makes it kind of okay, because one part is like, or some of my work, right? And I think that anybody who's seeing an opportunity to shift some of the aspects of their work to AI so that they can focus on the higher leverage tasks actually sees that as an opportunity. So, I am not, in a position to speak to the macroeconomic impacts of AI, but in terms of how we think about it for our team, we see it as a real opportunity for individually and for the products that we offer to leverage our team better and spend more of our time doing creative
Are there
work.
current members of your team that you're considering replacing with AI? And what are their names?
Yeah, right. I mean, the honest answer.
No cameras here.
The honest answer is nobody, of course, right? Because the more we can use our great people to solve the next problem as opposed to operationalizing the current problem, the better off we will be. So for us, it's all upside.
Hema, you alluded to testing and trying, and I wanted to hear from you if there were any specific experiments that Fidelity either is currently engaged in or might be in the future, or maybe just something a little bit nuts and bolts so that people can get some sense of what one of the largest brokerage firms slash asset managers in the world is doing, like actually doing with AI tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So within our team, and I work in a AI incubator, which incubates ideas, and then we pass it on to our business partners to implement and maintain in the long term. One of the things we have been trying out is working with digital avatars, and it opens up yet another modality, especially for the newer generations, trying to meet them where they are. And maybe it's the virtual world, maybe it's the metaverse. We don't know yet, but those are all experiments.
So digital avatars for the customers of Fidelity so that they can interact in a Fidelity environment as an avatar?
Potentially, I think the specific use case remains to be seen, but we're starting with the actual experimentation of the technology itself. How robust is it? Can it stay within the guardrails? What would be the upside to it, right? For example, multiple languages, or having different versions of the avatar that can resonate with people, so the engagement is better. So we're still in the initial phase where we are experimenting with these things, and we will end up doing A/B kind of testing, with a smaller audience, and then trying it out, and so on and so forth. We're also looking at, coaching, for example, of advisors or new hires, or phone associates, and so on and so forth, where having for a human coach to address each and every issue and to train each and every person we hire tends to be very hard after a point. It's not scalable beyond a point. And having AI augmentation, where some of the load is taken on by AI, and it can be done on their own time, their own pace, and then the escalations are handled by a human. So really nowhere replacing, but augmenting and getting into an era of embracing human AI collaboration. That's kind of where most of our experiments are.
I think that's a really key point that you're making. One of the ways in which I think we'll see AI implement, and I want to hear if you guys agree with this, one of the ways in which I think we'll see AI implemented immediately will be where a firm decides we have too many human employees doing too many menial tasks where the clients don't really care who does it, and we don't get much credit for having a person do it. Why can't a person oversee an AI program and just kind of check its work? That's happening already, obviously. I think that'll become more pronounced as time goes on. And I think the longer that we do that, the more we'll find clients really don't care how something gets done, so long as it gets done, whether it's a person or AI. What they do care about is when they have an escalation on a customer service desk, for example, something where they really need to explain it to a person and get feedback in the moment. For me, that feels very far off before an AI can do that sort of work, which is good news for people because it's using people for stuff that they can uniquely do. John, do you see it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that AI is sort of like a next wave of automation, right? Like it introduces the opportunity for everybody to get involved in telling computers what to do, basically, right? Like it brings a whole new interaction model so that people can automate away tasks without a technical background. Sometimes those things will turn out to be the prototype of a software system. Sometimes that stuff will actually, AI can assist programmers in building the durable version of that technology. Like the ways in which AI is going to factor into making us more efficient at building and operating all of the systems that we inhabit is really, we're just starting to scratch the surface. But I think most of it is about enabling people to be better at what they want to be doing, as opposed to sort of shifting that responsibility entirely.
Jeremy, I want to tell you a story and watch your facial expression react to it. At my firm, we have a policy where nobody can move money without having a phone call with the client. Period. No exception. So we can't have clients send emails and ask for $100,000 to be wired to their bank, even if that's the bank on file. We simply will not process it without a phone call confirmation. It could be a 30-second phone call, but my people know the clients and they have to talk. Not every firm has that policy. We have that policy. And then my cybersecurity outsourced guy that we pay God knows how much money came in and laughed after hearing that policy, and he played me a recording of me asking an employee, a hypothetical employee, to move money, and I could not tell whether or not it was me that actually. I said, "Would you hypnotize me?" It was almost too perfect. This has got to be the kind of thing covering personal finance at the Journal that is keeping the readers up at night, and certainly keeping the institutions up at night who are going to be responsible for this kind of thing if it becomes more widespread.
Yeah, well, I mean, if trust wasn't already frayed in 2024, it is, being further obliterated by the fact that, none of anyone can be faked. No one is necessarily who they say they are. We see these scams, which were already pretty prevalent, have been supercharged by generative AI, because suddenly people for whom English was not their first language now can create much more passable pitches on these scams, which can be constantly iterated to be made more effective. We had a story about this last week. It's called a pig butchering scam, where the scammers reach out to an older person on LinkedIn and who seems single or lonely, and eventually this guy.
Everyone on LinkedIn is lonely.
I mean, that might be true. And you read through these text messages, which were, on the one hand, so obviously done with the help of ChatGPT. Like, they even had it's almost like, oh, if you're going to so and so, you might also, like that, like kind of like how it will just spiral off in weird tangents. He lost like $700,000. And there are many of these going on. So absolutely, and people already don't like answering the phone. You assume anyone who is texting you is a scammer. And I don't know what, if to your point, with the deep fake audio and video, how can we even have interpersonal trust is a really scary.
So I'd love to hear from. I don't want this panel to completely take a dark turn, but
I'm terrified for my job, by the way. That's another story. But
I'd love to just hear from the two of you about whether or not there are a lot of requests or conversations about the need to fight AI with AI on the cybersecurity front. I'm assuming 100 million people log into a Fidelity account every day, some crazy number. You got, Sarah mentioned 900,000 clients. Mm-hmm. There've got to be attempts around the clock. Will the good guy AI be able to keep pace with the bad guy AI? And it sure sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money. Hema, what are you hearing and seeing inside of your institution?
Yeah, I think what we are trying to do is, of course, Fidelity is very, very careful, carrying 1/3 of the country's retirement money. You have to be, right? So we are taking multiple approaches to this. One is as simple as, multi-factor authentication. That's it. The only thing cannot be the phone or the voice or, a person talking to you. Add multiple layers of security to it. But you're right also in that we are investing heavily in the good AI. And I think this really is a clarion call for all of us, right? We cannot rely just on policy or government to fix this, or just enterprises. It's really everyone, the investor, the user, everyone needs to kind of be aware of the possibilities, and everyone together, we need to build out a more robust solution. And I'm personally very optimistic that things will resolve. But keep in mind that things are very rapidly changing right now. We're not at a stable state for AI evolution. So will there be bumps on the way? Probably, right? That we'll have to navigate together. But yeah, I think for me, a lot of the risk right now lies in not engaging with AI. That to me is the biggest risk, because we all risk getting disrupted if we don't engage. And while there's risks of engaging, not engaging, in my mind, is the bigger challenge. And so we'll get there. And I think we're all applying ourselves to the good.
Thank you for being optimistic. I think we all appreciate it. John, your thoughts?
So, I mean, you framed it as fighting AI with AI, and I think fighting AI with AI is going to be one of the battles in this space. But like as you mentioned, like multi-factor authentication is a very powerful tool, right? Like the ability to use other mechanisms to verify that somebody is who they say they are, as easy as a push notification on their device. Like we don't have to fight like a symmetric battle with AI deepfakes. We have a whole bunch of other tools in our arsenal. And I think also, like to your point, like we are at a very particular moment where people haven't fully, as a population, grokked the capability of this stuff yet. They're still surprised when they see that a deepfake is possible, right? That's going to be like 5 minutes before everybody's like, oh yeah, no. So voice is maybe not the way that I need to be able to authenticate.
We're not at the point where it happened to my neighbor.
Right, and
We're probably
that's
6
happening
months
very quickly.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think the same thing is true also, like just to extrapolate about like Gen AI and hallucinations and trustworthiness, right? Like there was a time when like not too long ago when Google engineers were falling in love with an AI because they thought it was a real person, and now like everybody's had a chance to interact with it, and they're like, oh, that is confidently wrong in a couple of cases. And that's helped a lot of people just sort of adjust their expectations. There can still be a ton of value to get out of interacting with an AI with the knowledge that it's not going to be perfect. And the same thing is true on the other side. So I think, I remain optimistic because I think we're all figuring it out together. And we've been thrown right into the deep end with how quickly this stuff has evolved.
I want to talk a little bit about AI on Wall Street and AI in finance and investing. So I have spent the last 3 weeks taking regular meetings with founders in the startup ecosystem who are working specifically on AI solutions for wealth management, AI solutions for investing. And it occurs to me that we have already kind of seen a bucketing of categories where people are trying to fit their company into those categories. And it makes sense because each of these categories is based on specific wealth management / client pain points. The first one, which hundreds of advisors are now signing up for per day, from what I hear, is AI note taking. So this is a ride along to a Zoom call that hears every word being said, of course, with everyone's consent, transcribes it. More important than the transcription, pulling out action items for the financial advisor's assistant, who then can execute those directly inside of Salesforce. There are 11 companies working, to my knowledge, 11 separate companies, all with a focus on AI note-taking for family office, financial advisor, wealth manager. That occurs to me as something where it's a fairly low risk for firms to experiment with, because if you read the transcription as the assistant and it sounds wrong, you don't allow those orders to be executed, whether they're trades or move money requests. What are some of the things that you guys are seeing in kind of the startup AI world? Or Jeremy, in your case, what are some of the pitches that you're getting from PR people?
On the note taking, I started doing that for every meeting I run, every interview with anyone I do, and there are multiple ways to use it. One, to distill like the core ideas and help the process of figuring out how to write the story, but to try to be a better runner of meetings, and everyone's terrible at running meetings. I have it now assessing my various transcripts of meetings and rating how did I do here, or did I ramble on too long, and it's remarkably effective. It once said my self-awareness was a 6 out of 10, which is pretty harsh, but it actually is helping me.
Have people at Dow Jones complimented you on your improved meetings?
No.
Not yet.
But I feel better.
You feel better.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, other things, like you mentioned the pain points. I've heard, there are things clients, don't tell you, or like be able to like run analysis of like full credit reports and pulling out things like, oh, you didn't mention this $140,000 in student debt you had, or there are a couple of startups doing stuff like that to really help with analysis of the liability side. Then there are several doing, like guidance for like decumulation is something I think people are thinking a lot about.
That's with safe withdrawal rates from retirement accounts as clients go. Yeah, the 75-year-olds just love this AI stuff. They can't get. They definitely want the decumulation formula being done by a robot. I've seen Finny AI is a startup. It's a young lady who started the company after having been in consulting and seeing how hard it was for financial advisors to meet and prospect new clients. So I did a demo with her, and basically for people that are shy or not sure how to start a conversation or don't know where to prospect, this looks like it could be a godsend if it, works as it should. Jump AI is a company that got funded yesterday. They're in this note-taking space. There's a company that we're invested in called Virgil, VRGL. I can take a Morgan Stanley brokerage statement. No offense, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, anyone. I don't know if you know this. A lot of the wirehouse accounts have 700-page statements. I think that's on purpose. I can feed that whole thing into Virgil, and Virgil can pull out facts, figures, taxes, fees, et cetera. These things could save hours for financial advisors. So I'm curious to hear what you guys are seeing in the way of these types of tools and what you're excited about.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've internally to Betterment, we've sort of taken this posture of like creating an enabling environment, like getting the technology in people's hands so that the people of the company can sort of be
employees.
That's right.
Okay.
So, yeah. Just last week we had a hackathon where our directors got together and they, used their business context to identify opportunities and built some custom GPTs and other prototypes of solutions that they might need. So I think the number of verticals in which you can deploy AI is really kind of staggering right now.
Yeah.
And I think that the real value and the winners are going to be products that marry AI to something deeply useful and domain specific to what you're trying to achieve. And finance is rife with that stuff. So I'm sort of more being like, you all tell me what you want to have solved. Let's figure out what we want to solve and then go find the right tools to bring together in order to make that happen.
It's a great approach. Hema, what's the coolest thing that you've seen outside of your own research center?
There's so much stuff happening right now.
We got time.
Yeah. I'd say we are seeing of course, Fidelity has thousands of phone associates, and we have a lot of data related to phone calls that we can mine and learn from. And we're doing projects which are trying to identify patterns within these phone calls to even maybe prevent the fork call, right? What's the reason why we're seeing these phone calls? Also help us train these associates more effectively, minimize the number of touches needed with every customer, improve customer satisfaction. So this kind of use case where we start tapping into the wealth of data that we have can yield not just one use case, but multiple use cases. So I think something like that is really exciting because you can go in with an open mind, start looking at things, and then it just evolves after that. And I'll just add one thing to what you were saying, which is really the true use cases are hidden within the business, right? So one thing that Fidelity is doing, I believe, well, is not really siloing the data scientists and the AI expertise, right? We have governance that's centralized, which makes sense because you want that to be consistent across the organization. But from a data scientist and AI expertise perspective, we're embedding that into every business unit. So it's close to the business and can really ferret out the true value versus being a tech first, AI first, here's the tech, use it. No, it's great because there's literally hundreds of use cases you can think of just sitting down, right? How do you know which is the one with the right value, which is going to yield a good ROI? And that really comes by working and integrating with the current business, with the current processes, with the current systems in place, right? There's Salesforce, there's Zoom, there's this. You got to have AI be a piece of the puzzle. AI is not an end in its own right. It's a means, right? So, yeah.
Can an AI beat the stock market?
Luckily, we're not in the business of beating the stock market, so we're going to sidestep that one entirely.
Hypothetically, I know if you tell investors, hey, here's an AI and it'll beat the stock market, like most of them will be like, oh, okay, here's some money.
Yeah.
But theoretically, could you envision a scenario where investment management becomes primarily AI, and rather than portfolio managers, it's data scientists who are overseeing a lot of what happens in active asset management? How likely do you think something like that? Because if you ask a Wall Streeter what they're worried about, they're not worried about cybersecurity. That's what they're worried about. So I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are. Jeremy, you want to start?
I mean, I think AI would certainly be good at convincing people it can beat the stock market, maybe more so they can actually do it, which maybe
it could hallucinate that it's Bill Ackman.
I mean, at this stage, generative AI's true talent, and the reason someone like me should be worried for his job is its true talent is, for lack of a better word, bullshit. The generating, just endless amounts.
He just broke the seal. I can say that now too. Somebody had to.
The ability to just spin off ideas without regard for accountability and so
you were talking specifically about large language models more so than overall AI.
I was on a tangent, but yes, so I do think the marketing of that ability to beat the market is probably more in reach than
that's coming. Hema, do you think theoretically we could get into a place where humans give up on these attempts and just hand it over to the AI to sort it out?
I truly don't know. Humans are strange beings, some things we still want to control. So my guess is it will be something that we will leverage AI for heavily, but maybe we want to have the last word on it.
Okay. And John?
Yeah, I mean, I think any good, durable approach to any problem solving is going to involve...
My problem is I want to beat the S&P.
I mean, it's going to involve insights, right? You've got to actually have insights, and AI, as currently framed, doesn't have insights. It just comes up with words. So I don't think generative AI is going to be the thing that's going to beat the market. Some configurations of AI with a strategy driven by an insight can probably have an edge, right? That's what investing is. But the generalized money-making machine, I'm not expecting that anytime soon.
Wouldn't it end up being just like the human who beats the market for 1 year and everyone thinks they're a genius? And
so that would be my belief, because if one person can beat the market using AI, everyone will have that tool, and it'll be really hard to sustain an edge. So there is an arms race underway amongst firms like D.E. Shaw, et cetera, Citadel. They are using algorithms. I'm sure they're using AI, but they have to compete with each other. So there are battlefields at every level, and nobody has their own battlefield to themselves without competition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the answers are available to everyone, right? But the real trick is going to be asking the right questions and using judgment. I think those are the skills we need to hone more so than anything else at this point. So even from an education perspective, I honestly think it's not about learning what to think. It's about learning how to think. So I think there's still advantages that can be had, individual to individual or organization to organization, depending upon how you leverage these tools.
Yesterday at Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, they unveiled iOS 18, which will be out this fall, and will hint toward the next iteration of the iPhone 16. It'll have AI features embedded in every single app that Apple makes, and most third-party developers were up all night last night thinking about how they can make sure they don't miss the boat. So if we were to ask consumers a year from now, do you use AI? The answer would have to be 100% yes by that point, given what we learned from Tim Cook and all of the various engineers and product heads that spoke yesterday. Did anything specifically jump out at you, given that this is a company with an installed base of 2 billion products, from phones to iPads to computers? This is a company that has an unlimited budget and has made it very clear that they are determined to introduce AI into all aspects of our lives. What about like that, those announcements grabbed your attention or made you think of something that you hadn't thought of before?
I think the first thing you said, that I mean, when Apple does something, it is going to be ubiquitous, and they'll do it in a way where they'll work out some of the kinks. It'll be less clunky,
User-friendly.
yeah, and and it to the point where, when you said that survey question, people use Siri and Alexa, but they don't think they're using AI because it's not that great. It's a very frustrating. It's like arguing with a really annoying friend or relative half the time. It's not. But once you could see, once this is a part of everything we do, it's seamless. You also might not think you're using AI anymore because it's just part of everything.
So if okay, that's a great point. If I ask Siri, what's the best Chinese food restaurant in Seattle? Might be something that I once asked. It could give me an answer. If I then say one with a lot of vegetarian options on the menu, it'll say, I don't know what you're talking about, because Siri doesn't remember the last question that you asked it. That's not conversational. What they showed us yesterday was a back and forth with Siri that does not require you to restate the original query. And it really felt as though you could picture 10 million people watching that video and saying, oh, that's different. That's like having an agent. Right. Hey, Siri, go get me on the next flight to Dallas. And then Siri return, here's an option. And then say, okay, book it. Siri being armed and ready to do that for you. Then we really all have an AI assistant. That must have been exciting to you guys as people that are doing technology at firms with lots of customer interactions. What were your thoughts, Hema?
Yeah, I love that Apple made it real, right?
They made it real. I agree with that.
Yeah, this is AI for everyone, in a way that we can practically use it. And I love that they integrated it so well. It's integrated with email, with messages, with your calendar. That's the power ultimately, right? Is connecting those dots, putting that it's personalized all around me. It's a universe of one, and here's this AI assistant helping me through it. And they're at least talking about keeping it private. So that'll be another interesting element. Increasingly, we're going to end up relying on tools like these.
A big part of the pitch, which absolutely has ramifications for finance, was that there's no need for Apple to send your user data to a third party to be warehoused. They're going to do on-device compute, and anything that requires more power than that will be done in an Apple private cloud. I think one of the things Apple has done reputationally is they've established themselves as the king of privacy. Whether people realize it or not, they just trust it. What do you think the ramifications are, John, for a situation where people have that comfort level using AI, given that, the phone, the center of their life, is going to have it embedded?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crucial that that one of the major implementers of AI technology have a really strong privacy orientation, because if it were all done by sort of gold rush kind of actors, you could imagine it actually like blowing back in a pretty big way when a couple of key incidents happen.
You could say Elon Musk. It's okay.
I mean, there's plenty of different outfits that you would not want to trust with your most personal information. So I think that Apple's reputation there is really key. I think there's also some hard technical trade-offs around how much can you deliver at what cost, at the level of fidelity that you want to offer in a way that preserves privacy meaningfully. It's going to be really interesting to watch, but I think that Apple is at least incentivized through their brand to make a good on their promise to take good care of your privacy. So I think that's really exciting and powerful because, yeah, you could absolutely see a world where folks become less willing to use this technology if a major breach happened or something like that.
You guys have any views on the societal effect of AI, not just in a finance context, but just in all your thinking and reading on the subject and all the people that you talk to? Do you have a sense of, on balance, whether or not this will look and feel like a net positive versus a net negative a year out? Understanding that 5 years out is impossible to picture, but just if we could, before we go to Q&A, just kind of get a sense from each of you what your thoughts are just about the overall impact. Jeremy, do you want to start?
I mean,
Be positive.
the optimistic answer to that question, it would be, I think to what Hema said, I mean, the way I've been using it and where I see the potential is it is a tool for better thinking, that it is that I was talking to Salman Khan, the Khan Academy founder, and who really believes strongly about what this can do for education. And what he said that stuck with me is that it's giving everyone on earth like a Socratic tutor with you at all times. And that, in my experience of thinking through ideas, like even when the answers you get from a lot of these generative AI services aren't always right, but it helps you think through things more clearly. And that is what Socrates really did, is just asking questions to get you to realize the holes in your own reasoning and what the better path forward is. That has super potential for a better understanding of our world and navigating it and how we relate with others. So I find and our retention of information amid the fire hose of crap we're constantly bombarded with. The pessimistic side is like with any technology, what you gain something and you have to lose something too. And you get GPS, suddenly none of us knows how to get around anymore. I mean, to go back to Socrates, when writing was invented, he worried people would, their memories would decline, which they did. So I think any new tech, and we don't really yet know the full extent, but we're obviously seeding things we thought were core human traits, and now they no longer feel quite so special. That's got to have some major consequences.
Hema, how do you feel about the societal impact of AI?
I am super excited about the fact that we now have democratized access to AI. AI was something that was a purview of a select few. And now, anyone with a phone has access to AI. And it's in multiple modalities. You can talk to it, you can see videos, you can send images, you can text in multiple languages. So the who, the what, the where of access has just dramatically exploded. And so the capacity to be creative and innovative is now accessible to a wide audience before, much more than we've ever seen before. So I'm really excited to see.
That sounds both great and potentially sinister. Everyone has AI. Wait a minute. Everyone has AI.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And so, but that's the societal impact, right? We need to see what comes out of it. The other thing I would say, like, for example, I was just reading an article. MIT did a study on a leading use case of AI, which is, coding and using the GitHub Copilot. And they found that the developers were 55% faster in that particular study that they did. And it just begs the question, wow, we have 55% more time. What does that mean for all of us, right? So I think there's a lot of unknown unknowns at this point, and including.
So as an employer, just to follow that thread, if my coders tell me, hey, great news, I got this done 55% faster than usual, my response is not, okay, great, go to Six Flags. Right. My response is, well, here's 55% more work.
Right.
So, it remains to be seen whether or not this is a time saver. It's definitely going to be efficient.
Right.
but it may not necessarily mean less work for people.
Right. And how does it hit different roles, different industries? I mean, that's just one very specific example, right? And the script is yet to be written on this, honestly. So it's a watch item. And it's an exciting space. I feel we're fortunate to be living through this. It just seems full of opportunities and, of course, challenges. But again, that's where I would go back to engage. Because, you want to keep your opportunities close, but your challenges closer. That's what I've heard.
John, how do you feel about this?
So I would say two things. One, it's going to be transformative, but it's going to be transformative mostly in ways that are subtle. And two, I would...
So more evolution than revolution?
Well, I think it will be revolutionary in ways that are often not visible.
Okay.
But also, I would never underestimate people's ability to get complacent and bored with it, right? Right now, we're like, oh my God, this new capability. Next year, it'll be, this is what my phone does. Obviously, this is what my phone does.
Yeah.
And that's good, and that's just sort of the way that we carry things. But like AI itself, right? Like as a term has existed for decades, and for like successive generation after successive generation of AI technology has gone from being, ooh, computers can think now, to that's what computers do. Like so every time, every decade or so, we're like, oh, now we have real AI. And we're like, cool, that's great. And then we're like, yeah, that's just what computers do. So I think that this is yet another huge step forward in that. And it's going to transform our expectations of what computers can do for us. But it's also, we're going to take it in stride, and people are going to grow and learn, and it's going to be great.
Louis C.K. has a great joke where this guy is on an airplane for the first time ever. There's Wi-Fi on a Tuesday. And then the next day, Wednesday, he flies back in the other direction. The Wi-Fi goes out. And he says, this is bullshit. Like, we get used to things really fast. They become status quo. And then, to your point, it's like, all right, but what else is new? So you think that there is some danger, not danger. You think that there might be some element of, okay, big deal, we're over it. Why were people in 2024 doing panels about AI? Like, is that a possible thing?
Well, I mean, this is us culturally processing this thing, which is momentous, and
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that this is it, right? Like there will be iterative and possibly more transformative changes in the AI space, but like even just sort of absorbing this in is like a really solid piece of work for us to do. Figuring out how to get the most out of the technology that exists today, even without like predicting what's next, what else it could do. We've got so much work to do just operationalizing it and bringing it into our work. That there's a lot to do.
So if I were an AI note taker, I would summarize our discussion as cautiously optimistic on the future of AI. Yes? Okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Before I go to the Q&A, how about a round of applause for our panel? That was terrific, guys. We have 5-10 minutes to hear what you got. It doesn't have to be a question. It could be a statement, a dirty joke, whatever we want to do. Got a lot of hands up. All right. I saw yours first, sir. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I'll rephrase just in case. Go ahead.
The people I come across with, one of the biggest societal impact they're concerned is job displacements. Now, people are really freaking out. For good reason. If we look at some of the historical technology, we have seen actually their job increase as opposed to job displacement. For example, Excel, WYSIWYG, or Lotus 123, for those who are a little bit older. I think that's all walks of life. Let's focusing on the topic of finance now, since we're talking about AI and finance. Let's say in 10 years, sounds like a long time. Well, let me also make add a comment. So when we hear also gentlemen like Jamie Dimon talking about your children might be working 3.5 days instead of 8 days in a week, I think people are getting concerned, right? So with that said, in 10 years, let's say in Wall Street, do you see net job growth or net job decrease?
I'd open that up to any of the three of you. Do you have a strong opinion about 10 years from now, amount of employment in finance on Wall Street being up or down relative to today?
Well, I can sort of we believe in our space, right? We can create access to financial advice and planning that was inaccessible to people through technology. This is like another level of being able to extend that further. So, if you can provide more to people, I think that makes a solid case for more employment in that space. But, I'm not a macro guy, right? Like I just run an engineering team, but like, I think that the more you can do for humans, the more work there's going to be to do.
So that's where I am, but I acknowledge that there might, for certain industries or types of work, they might go away completely, but the person doesn't go away completely. The person learns new skills, or their job changes because one thing they were spending a lot of their time on is no longer necessary, but they still have value to the organization. I see you vigorously nodding your head. Do you believe that will be the case as well?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
I was reading up something interesting, which was apparently in 1900, like 41% of the employment was agricultural.
Yeah, worked on farms.
Yeah, and by 2000 it was 2%.
Right.
And then the census reports that in 2018, 61% of employment was in roles that did not exist in 1940. So history tells us, and this is a museum event, we have to have some kind of call out to history, that we have adapted, right? And even the autonomy paradox states that though it creates autonomy, there's typically more work created to support the autonomy. So I think we will evolve. Nobody has I don't have a crystal ball for sure.
Natural growth is that
You're holding me.
I think job growth will follow population growth. So I'm more optimistic. I also think that the types of jobs will improve, and we will look back at some of the jobs people were doing right now and say, thank God nobody has to do that anymore. And I'm informed by the history of progress. And like I don't know where the technology is going any better than you or anyone else. I just think about the advances that we've had throughout history. I know there are gaps that are painful, but for the most part, I don't think most workers in 2024 would want to be doing the jobs that their great-grandparents did.
But I mean, to your point about 3-day work weeks, John Maynard Keynes predicted just the same thing almost a century ago, saying that his grandchildren would only have to work 3 days a week, and his grandchildren would be working, probably even more because our hours, so we'll probably come up with new ways to torture ourselves and employ ourselves. And
I think one thing is we always want more.
Yeah.
No one consciously ever says, all right, I'm good.
Yeah.
So maybe the silver lining to that type of restless energy is we'll find new ways to employ ourselves or employ people. Who else had a hand up? Please, sir.
Josh, you talked about AI being used by financial advisors for note-taking, translating.
I see you are taking note on a prehistoric tablet. Please continue. Is that AI, that notepad? Okay.
Old school.
Okay.
So one, is that the biggest use case you're seeing for financial advisors right now?
It's one of three.
Sorry?
It's one of three. I think the first three, and maybe in the long run, the most important three. The first would be AI note-taking. I have CFPs who work at my firm. They have an hour meeting with a client once every 3 months or 6 months, depending. It takes them an hour or more, sometimes working with a human paraplanner to be ready for that meeting. And then the post-meeting wrap-up of, okay, what did we say we have to do? We need to open an UGMA account for this grandchild. That process could be another hour. If I could save my CFPs 60 minutes on either side of those client meetings, they can meet with twice as many clients per day. And if you extrapolate that out across the 27 client-facing CFPs who are leading practices at my firm and the 5 paraplanners who are supporting them, it is a massive, scalable proposition. We could manage more money and not have to go out and find more talent or pay more people. So that's one. 2 is client onboarding. Betterment has the best client onboarding I have seen anywhere. I'm not just saying that because I'm in Betterment headquarters, although I do hope Sarah heard me saying that. They truly, I said to my team 7 years ago, when we first started using Betterment for our sub $1 million accounts, why does it take 3 to 7 days to onboard one of our clients, but I can open up an account on Betterment and fund it in 5 minutes? What are we not doing right, or what's wrong with us? We have since shortened our window from 3 to 7 days to like 3 to 5 days. So that's something. Betterment's probably gone from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. Once every human financial advisor and every RIA in the country has an onboarding process that looks more like his and less like mine, that's also game changing when you consider how many support staff I have and how many of their tasks I would love to take off their plate, give to AI, so that they can spend more time doing the higher valued work of a client service associate. The third area, which I think will be the trickiest to implement, will involve investment management. We've got a couple of $1 billion in custom and direct index strategies right now. I've got a human trading team that is overseeing algorithmic trading. We're doing daily tax loss harvesting. It's a lot of work. It's terrifying. If you make mistakes, it costs you a lot of money as a firm. The client is always right. And there are a lot of balls in the air. So the investment management piece, handing more of that over to AI and being able to trust that AI, more importantly, I think, again, will be the trickiest to implement, but perhaps be the most profound thing that comes to the wealth management market. We have one way in the back. I see you. Go ahead.
So one way people measure specifically for banks how effective they are is the efficiency ratio. And for the last 10 to 15 years, efficiency ratio has been pretty stable over many consecutive banks. So my question is, why is AI different? Because the whole sentiment is to make banks more efficient. But throughout history, we've seen other consecutive advancements, and that ratio stays pretty stable.
Okay, I think I caught most of that. He asked Celtics or Mavericks. He's asking about, if we keep having new technology all the time, why does it seem like banks are not becoming more efficient? Or why do I have that right? Like, why don't things change as much as we think the technology changes? Efficiency ratio. Any takers?
I mean, our business is predicated on being massively more efficient than legacy competitors. So we wouldn't be here today if we weren't able to find efficiencies. But I don't know the specifics of the banking efficiency ratio story.
Okay, let's try to get one or two more in, please, sir.
Can you talk about buy versus build? Because from Betterment and Fidelity, there seems to be a fair amount of latitude teams to say find some use cases in deep verticals. Is it possible that in 18 months, management teams will be saying, why on earth were we trying to build this rather than buy?
Okay, buy versus build in AI. Why would firms like yours make something yourself versus find a version that exists outside and, I guess, customize it or bring it in?
I think we're looking at both for sure. We do want to experiment, if nothing, just to learn the options. Plus, there's a lot of data that we would like to keep within the four walls. So how do we leverage that effectively? Those would become the use cases that we want to build. But then absolutely, there's going to be others, the Microsofts, the Zooms, Salesforces of the world are heavily investing, and they are subject matter experts in their own areas. So it's between the build, the buy, the partners, the ecosystem is going to build itself out. I don't think it's a one pillar. It's multiple pillars that will build it out.
Okay, I know there were some more hands up, but we're running up against time. I will be sharing Hema's email address after the program, so if you have further questions, you can go to her directly. I do want to, once again, a round of applause for John, Hema, Jeremy. You guys were fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'd like to bring up David Cowan for closing remarks, followed by a cocktail recession.
Yeah, well, I'm here. And I want to thank Josh, everybody. That was outstanding. Thank you for leading us. I'm going to tell you what is not an AI deepfake. The bar is open. Please join us.